Today, I'm here to talk to you about the growing stigma surrounding mental illnesses. You may have heard of the name Adam Lanza, or at least you should have by now. From an early age, Adam exhibited signs of a severe mental health disorder known as sensory perception disorder. Bright lights, loud sounds, and even certain textures were unbearable to Adam. Secluded in his bedroom for weeks at a time with all light blocked out, his only form of social interaction was through violent video games and the study of history's most famous mass killers. A Yale psychiatrist who briefly treated Lanza is quoted in saying that he displayed a profound autism spectrum disorder with rigidity, isolation, and a lack of comprehension of ordinary social interactions and communications. Adam never fully accepted his diagnosis and refused on medication. This led to December 14, 2012. In Newtown, Connecticut, Adam Lanza fatally shot 20 children and 6 adults at Sandy Hook Elementary School. Now, what do Adam Lanza, Jarvely Wong, James Holmes, and Aaron Alexis all have in common? They are all mass shooters who happen to be mentally ill. Now let's see what Liza Gold has to say about this. Gold, a forensic psychiatrist in Arlington, Virginia, is quoted in saying that the relationship between violence and mental illness is complicated. Most people who commit acts of violence don't exhibit signs of mental illness, and most people who are mentally ill are not violent. So why do we automatically jump to blame the mentally ill? It's because society needs a reason for when bad things happen, and the media does not help with this. The media automatically looks to blame the mentally ill because it's an easy outlet. An article on Newsweekly website by Snyder talks about the 2015 Charleston, South Carolina mass shooter Dylan Storm Roof. Snyder writes, "Details of what drove someone to commit this terrible act remain elusive, but if history is any indication, the shooter most likely has a history of severe mental health issues." Now, why would Snyder write "most likely"? It's because he does not actually know the true reason behind the shooting. He does, however, know that society will accept mental illness as the motivation behind the shooting because of the growing stigma surrounding mental illnesses in America. So I come to you today with a solution to weed out these stigmas. So, to discourage the growing stigma surrounding mental health disorders, we need to start incorporating mental health education programs in elementary and middle schools all across the country. Why do we need these programs, you may ask? Well, because firstly, people fear those with mental health disorders solely because they do not understand them. Secondly, people need to start understanding that mental illnesses are the same as any other physiological illness. And thirdly, because those with mental illnesses are not going to get the help that they need because they're afraid their peers will shame them because of the ignorant stigmas that surround their disorders. A member of the Institute of Medicine released a statement saying that although studies suggest a link between mental illness and violence, the contribution of people with mental illnesses to overall rates of violence is small, and further, the magnitude of the relationship is greatly exaggerated in the minds of the general population. These proposed mental health education programs will help kids understand that mental health disorders are not something they need to fear. It's like teaching a kid to share. You teach them at a young age because you hope it will stick with them. The same goes for mental health disorders. Tony Ferrino writes an interesting article comparing mental illnesses to other physiological illnesses. He believes that because the human brain is considered an organ, like all the other organs of the body, an illness in the brain that manifests itself in the form of wrongful chemical reactions should be considered a physiological issue, the same as a heart attack. Just because most mental illnesses start from a traumatic incident that may have not caused visible problems, it does not mean that there is not a physiological problem in your brain. People are not getting the help they so desperately need for the fear of falling victim to the shame and stigmas that surround mental health disorders. The very few number of people who are considered dangerous because of their mental health disorders probably chose to not get help because they did not want to be labeled mentally ill. This is not something people should have to fear. No one wants an illness, so why is it fair that society can shame people with mental illnesses into not getting their treatment? All three of these reasons lead to one thing, which is that society needs to be taught through early education programs to accept those with mental illnesses, to show compassion for them, and to know that mental health disorders are not something that needs to be feared, and is certainly not an adequate scapegoat for bad things happening.